Tired of dreaming about your own cannabis dispensary, but getting stuck on licensing and costs? We've got the perfect solution for you. Introducing your own brand with celebrity partnerships. Imagine launching your own cannabis business with full support, even if you have zero experience. We provide training, handle shipping, and take care of licensing, all 100% legal. We cover all 50 states and 26 countries, offering your customers over 100 top-tier products. No inventory headaches for you, as we manage it all. Ready to dive in? Start with an investment as low as $500 and watch your business grow. Learn more by visiting www.cannaglobe.biz//sweet sensations. That's www.cannaglobe.biz//sweet sensations, or call area code 702-767-0683. Once again, that telephone number is 702-767-0683. One more time, 702-767-0683. cannaglobe.biz//sweet sensations.
Blend any drink while on the go with the Floor Slicer. Available at floorslicer.com. Summer is here, and with it, that hot, scorching weather. Beat the heat in style while staying hydrated with the Floor Slicer. The Floor Slicer is portable and waterproof. Why are you messing around with that overgrown blender in the kitchen? Put it down already and pick up the Floor Slicer. Put those sodas down and take healthier options with the Floor Slicer. Blend and go with ease with the Floor Slicer. Pick up your Floor Slicer today at floorslicer.com. That's floorslicer.com. You're checking out Wrestling with the Topics. Lee Sanders here, Tammy Sanders here. We are back. Did you miss us? Did you miss this show? I know there was a decent amount of you guys that definitely missed this series, as we've had this on hiatus for several months now. And me and Tams, we've been trying to figure out when to sit down and bring the show back. And our schedules has honestly just been pretty hectic, especially mine's with regards to college and all. So I'm glad we're sitting down and we're finally doing this again. And one question that may come to mind for some of our listeners: what's the motivation here for bringing this series back? Well, a couple of things. One, I legit miss talking with Tams and doing this show, because we legit had a decent amount of listeners that would always ask, what's going on with this series? When is it coming back? And then Tams, the other thing that was a factor as well is we've been very blessed, very fortunate enough to work with many, many clients that's been interested in advertising with us. And although we appreciate the clients that we've been able to work with, it's gotten to a point now where the main show, the RCWR show, we have reached essentially our maxed capacity of advertisers. So as a result of that, we have to look into expanding more and to make sure we're not in a position where we're alienating listeners on demand and on the downloads. We decided, okay, you know what? We've got Wrestling with the Topics. It is essentially a clean slate. And a lot of the advertisers I spoke with, they said, oh, yeah, that's fine. If you can't put me on the main show, that's fine. As long as I'm put out there in front of your audience. It's the same audience, right? It's like, yeah, it's the same audience. Okay, well, I'll take that. So those are part of the main factors for bringing the series back. So we have this series back for the next little bit. and I'm pretty excited about it. You know, not to mention the other factor has been our now 3 furry little daughters.
Woo. Yes, our 3 furry little daughters. So for many of you, especially those of you who were around for the first go around as far as the Wrestling with the Topics show, we actually had 3 furry little daughters. One actually, unfortunately, did pass, which I think most of you, or some of you for sure, who, had that following on social media. Maggie did pass. So we went down to 2 for a while, and their bond got really strong, and they are essentially sisters. The 2 youngest that we have. And the funny story with that was we were literally good with 2. That was fine. That was a good thing. They were both, young, trained by us, grew up, and now they're, almost 3 and almost 1. So everything was good, groovy, and what have you. I get a text message from the person that has the mom and the dad of our 2 furry little ones, to say that there was a particular furry little girl that needed a rehome because that did not work out with the original owner. And at first I was like, what? Maybe? Well, let me think about it. And so we thought about it. And we're like, well, maybe. And so we had thought about it. And we were to the point of the maybe. And I said, okay, well, here's what we're going to do. We're going to do a little staycation for the weekend. We get to the staycation for the weekend time, and the day before, I get a text message. She's not ready yet. I don't think I'm going to rehome her. I'm going to keep her. Okay, perfect. We can still have our furry little girls, the 2 of them, and I'm great with that. And I kid you not, a week later, I get a message that says, hey, are you still coming up to see this little girl? And I said, I thought she needed some more training and a few other things. And she's like, well, I think she's doing okay. Why don't you come see for yourself? Okay. So I get up there and now it's the legit, I'm actually trying to track this person down. I'm calling everybody and their mama that I happen to know that knows this person's information in reference to her phone number so that I can essentially figure out if I'm going to even have this little staycation to where it's going to even be possible. So finally track her down. She's at home and everything is good. I go over there. I meet, her name is Precious. The other 2 are Chloe and Holly. And so I said, and I get there, guys, I kid you not, it sounds like the pound. I'm like, oh, brother. Okay. And I'm like, and Precious is with everybody just barking away like, So, I have that little first meeting and I'm like, okay, well, that's not doing too bad. So I was like, okay. And then we went off, and legit, as I leave the house, I get, please don't bring her back. Well, damn.
Now you're leaving on a very important piece of information for the listeners, which is essentially how you were guilted how essentially we were guilted.
Oh, yes, you're right.
Yeah, man, you got to mention that now.
Sorry. Yes, I should backtrack a little bit in reference to the second go around. And I was like, yeah, financially, I don't know if I want to do a third dog. And, we're kind of good. I'm legit. I'm good. And so I said, yeah, I think I've talked to my husband. We're good. We're going to do it. We're going to stay with 2. She's like, okay, I respect your decision. And she said, I'm running out of options. She said, I'm pretty much going to take her to the pound. And I'm going to tell you a little bit about me. I cannot stand to see siblings separated, nor can I stand to see a dog that I know about go to the pound, because I know what it does to them. And she's already been rehomed once. And to go to the pound, I just couldn't do it. I just could not do it. So fast forward back to the, essentially still being guilted a little bit into taking the dog. I'm like, well, okay, well, let's see. And at this point, in no form or fashion did I say I was going to take the dog. I said, we will see. I'll see how she does with Chloe and Holly, and then we'll go from there. So I get her outside, and she's kind of like, okay, well, I'll walk with you a little bit, and so on and so forth. She hops in the car. Wow, okay, well, that's interesting. So she hops in the car, we drive home, and poor thing, she shook all the way home. And sat pretty much on my arm most of the way. And she got in, and, the funny thing is she adapted very well. Like within a day, which I did not expect at all. Within 24 hours, she had adapted to her new surroundings. Chloe had adapted to like, hey, this is a new buddy I got. Chloe was kind of like, okay, curious on who you are. We'll see. But all right, I think you can stay. So fast forward to 24 to 48 hours later, basically we, decided, I asked Lee, I said, okay, so what do you think? We keeping her? What do you got? And he's like, well, I think so. I said, okay, because I have to, let her know and, what we're going to do. So we have decided to keep her and then go back to essentially 3 dogs. So the very long-winded version of that story is we now have 3 dogs again.
2 manageable, 3 can be challenging, especially where it gets tricky is, okay, now that there's a 3rd one in the mix, bathroom times, because it's like, okay, not everybody is going to do the same thing at the same time. When it's 2, you're guaranteed that, okay, they're going to do something. But then when you add a 3rd veritable in the mix, especially one that is somewhat of a disruptor, because they are coming from a home where they didn't have that structure, that proper setup. So it can somewhat be a challenge to get them to be retrained, but it's been pretty good so far. So yeah, that's just the gist of what's been happening in the Sanders household. I know I told the listeners already, but for newer listeners, I made the transition into leaving my 9-to-5 gigs, and I just decided, okay, I'm just gonna be an independent contractor. I'm just going to be my own guy. I'm just going to work for myself. And it's been working out great so far. But I got to admit to you guys, here in the DC metropolitan area, the weather hadn't been too kind. Code red alert type of weather, even at night. So that's been sidelining me a little bit. And as you hear one of them growling, actually,
that would be precious.
Yeah. It's live. Well, at the time that we're recording this, it's live. Anything can potentially go down. But it's felt revigorating just being my own boss. Honestly, and I know that there's a lot of older listeners out there around our age or folks that's maybe in their mid to late 20s. I'll be totally honest with you. I was not scared in flying solo and working for myself, and I didn't have any trepidations whatsoever. If anything, my whole concern was, okay, how is this gonna really map itself out? I have an older car, and as we speak, I'm getting estimates because I've got something wrong right now with the knock sensor. And Jesus, it can just be a headache when you're trying to have a car pass the emissions test. It fails. You got to figure out, okay, how can I, and we learned the hard way recently upon taking the car to emissions. We didn't have to take it to emissions until this coming week, just a couple of days before the 4th of July holiday. However, when we took the vehicle earlier this week to emissions and show all our paperwork to let the guys know, hey, we could use a year waiver because we've spent the required amount to fix the car up, we're told, yeah, the repairs has to be related to the codes, and this is not related to the codes. And we're like, oh my God. So, and the way the guy had communicated it to us, it came off very dickish, very unprofessional, especially when you factor in a slight language barrier issue and everything. Mm-hmm. So it was just really nerve-wracking. And then I add on top of that how hot it was that day when we went. We just wanted to hurry up, get the hell out of there and move on already. Mm-hmm. But it was heartbreaking because some of the work that was done on my car recently had involved my tires. And I had got all 4 tires replaced. So that was replaced. Installed. When I was done with that alone, that was almost $400. And then there was a recommendation that I get my windshield wipers replaced because they were cracking big time, and they weren't that confident that they were going to last that much longer. And so I'm like, okay, well, that freaking sucks. What can we do about that? So yeah, that was very, very nerve-wracking to experience that. But it all ties into being my own boss, working for myself. And for anybody that's curious, I don't mind being honest with you guys. I'm an Instacart shopper. I've been making really good money with it off and on the past year plus, really since I got my provisional license. And I've been making really good money off of it. And it just got to a point where it said, okay, look, this is actually paying me more than this job over here. And yeah, why am I continuing to essentially, work for peanuts? Like, it'd be one thing to go, okay, well, you can do the Instacart and you can still do this over here at the same time. But when you factor in, okay, not only is this job over here, you're getting nothing but peanuts, but also the politics that's involved, your work really not being recognized to a certain degree, and then the interactions that you have to have with certain individuals, it's just it gets to a point where it's really nerve-wracking. And then it's, okay, do I really want to continue to do this? Because I don't like what it's doing to my personality. It's changing my personal outlook in how I interact with people. And it's so weird because I remember when the pandemic first started, it wasn't always like that. I was essentially looked at as a hero or whatnot. And then once that honeymoon period was over, I know you guys definitely can feel where I'm coming from. So I like it, not to mention as a college student, especially with my current schedule that's going to be coming up this fall, my fall semester is loaded big time. I've got at least almost 20 credit hours of courses. So when you break that down, I'm going to be taking at least 7 courses this fall. And, Tams unfortunately still has the nasty habit when it comes to being a co-host. She still has the nasty habit of flinching, playing with something, and she doesn't realize how. And there's a really great video that I recommend people check out online. Conan O'Brien, he has these guests that's also his friends, and they're all trying to do a podcast. And Conan is watching one of his friends play with something in their hands, and it's throwing Conan off big time because he's trying to focus on, and it's messing him up. And it's like some co-hosts can just go with the motion and all that, but then like when you have somebody that's sitting right next to you and they're playing with a rubber band or what have you, I get what Conan is talking about. He was being funny about it, but you could tell he was serious. That no, seriously, like that's distracting. You're like kind of throwing me off there. Certain noises like maybe the girls playing in the background, I can easily block that out. All that good stuff. But like we've got some old habits going forward that we need to help Tams clear up with. I know one thing I told her when we were doing the last batch of shows. I said, the whole point of two people doing a show is so that when one person is kind of done talking for a little bit, as the other person jumps in, if you got to replenish your vocals. And she's like, no, I'm good. I don't need. I said, you're not supposed to like drink water, but you are supposed to take just a tiny little sip, hydrate your vocals. I was telling her how when I had played one of the shows back, you could hear her swallowing, each time. So she was kind of struggling there, and she's just relying on her own saliva. It's like, no, don't rely on your own saliva. It's like, don't rely on your own saliva. It's funny because when you've been podcasting as long as I've been podcasting, it just comes natural. I've done shows where sometimes I forget to grab something to drink. It happens frequently. And somehow I'm able to manage balancing out what I'm saying, my pace, because that's the key. That's the key, the pacing. The better you pace yourself, the more you'll be in a position where you won't be swallowing your saliva as much. You won't be talking with a dry voice box, right? It's like little tips of the trade that I've kind of noticed as a podcaster. Speaking of podcasting and all that, kind of fun, interesting little news, kind of a good topic to bring up. So, as we all know, former WWE wrestler Dijak, he revealed, it was kind of silly what he posted on social media, but I get what he was doing. He essentially was going for the Cody Rhodes joint when Cody Rhodes had the infamous list of people he wanted to face on the independents, but Dijak did not have a list. He just wrote this letter basically saying, I'm done with WWE. My last day with WWE is Friday, June 28th, 2024. And even if they were to offer me a new contract, I'm not going to sign it. And he talked about how essentially he didn't appreciate the fact that they just let his contract expire because he'd been with the company for like 5 years or whatever. He recently got called up to Raw. He only did like one thing on Raw. And so he was having concerns. And, he pretty much was told, everything's good. You're okay. Everything's on the up and up. And yeah, what you're being told and what you're actually seeing is two different things, as we all know. So when it's all said and done, they decided to go in a different direction. So they're not re-upping his deal and all that. And I know, look, you cannot tell me that, okay, you finally land your dream job, your career, right? You've hit Broadway because you're now with the WWE. You can't tell me that now that you've been there for however the length of time is, and now that dream is essentially being taken away from you, you can't tell me it doesn't sting. You can't tell me it doesn't hurt, right? You can't. You'd be lying otherwise. So I would imagine for Dijak, he was a little bit hurt. I would imagine he gave it all the respectable time that he did, because he has documented very well under the Vince McMahon regime how he didn't like the creative direction for his character. Okay, well, Vince is out of the picture, has been out of the picture for quite some time. It's been the Paul Levesque show. And it would appear that Dijak not incorporated in that Triple H, Paul Levesque, new WWE era. So he's looking forward, Dijak is, of going out there, tearing it up on the independents. And I'm wishing the brother nothing but the very best. So once he puts this letter out, this is full context for people that don't understand, you know, what happened and all of that, haven't been checking on the feeds and all. So he puts this out. He mentions that he's available for interviews and bookings. It's like, oh, okay, cool. So I see this probably less than an hour after he posted it. I immediately email him. And man, I am so tired of this notification about restarting. Like, I've already let the computer know that, hey, I want the restart to go down after 5 p.m. So why it is continuing to blue-doo-doop, 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 blue-doo-doop. Let's say turn off all notifications for settings. Maybe that will help. Yeah, that should silence it. Silence! Anyway, I emailed Dijak. I introduce myself and everything. And I say, hey, would love it if you could grant us an interview to talk about your time in WWE, your wrestling career in general, talk about your future bookings and all that. Within maybe 15 minutes or less, I get an email back. I don't know if it was from him directly or his respected publicists, his people, whatnot, but I get this email that basically says, and I'm paraphrasing, but I'm not on the main point. It says, hey, thanks for reaching out. Unfortunately, I have been bombarded with interview requests, so much so that I'm requesting a $250 fee, which will get you 1 hour. If you're interested, PayPal, or is it Vimo? Vimo me at, and let me know the name of your show in the notes. In the notes, and we'll set it up, you know, when the time arises and you're like, wow, okay. And so it brought up a very interesting question, which was, and look, first off, Dijak, this is your 15 minutes of fame. Get that money. Any possible way you can get that money right now from your interviews, from any bookings that you're able to obtain, get that money. Get that money. I can't hate the hustle. I can't. You know, I can't hate it. But it does bring up a very interesting question, which is, hey, when it comes to interviews, should you be paying for interviews? It really does bring that interesting question up. Now, before I go, now that I've set it up properly, I definitely would like for you, now that you've got full context on everything, you know, what's your thoughts about hearing Dijak basically being out there on the free agency market once again, but at the same time, in regards to these interviews, $250. Feel free to take it any way you want to take it, and I'll jump in later.
Well, my first question is not that, I mean, this could have been addressed. I don't know. But if you don't like the direction that your creative character is going, why not? I mean, all the other wrestlers do it. Hey, here's an idea.
He did.
Okay. And all fell on deaf ears?
Apparently so. I know he spoke at great length. It's the first interview that I'm aware of. He spoke with Sean Ross Sapp of Fightful I think they did the interview yesterday or the day before, because they've got like so many transcripts out. He talked about how under the Vince McMahon regime, he tried to have a meeting with Vince McMahon, and he recalled how he had to go through like these different sections at the arena just to get to Vince McMahon. For him, it felt like he was part of a video game, and he was going through certain levels, and there were sub bosses until he got to the ultimate boss. And when he finally did get to Vince McMahon was in this room with a bunch of writers. Dijak felt, oh man, I'm messing up here because I'm obviously walking in on something pretty important. Vince waved, gestured to him to come on in. He was wearing a tank top, I think shorts or whatnot. Dijak waiting about 10 minutes at most, but for him it felt like an eternity. Then he introduces himself to Vince McMahon and says, hi, I'm Dijak. I'm from down in NXT. I was just brought up on the main roster here. Do we have any idea what we're going to be doing for me creatively? And Vince says to him, oh, you were down in NXT? Okay, Bruce Pritchard is the one that you want to be talking to. And Dijak knew from that moment on he was on Vince's shit list because of how he came in. Not to mention the fact that he did not follow the proper chain of command and go with Bruce Pritchard. And so, you know, so he was doing it badly off the break without really knowing it. Like, you commend him for, okay, way to
take charge.
Try to take charge and all that. Right.
Yeah.
But we've heard Vince McMahon, you know, he don't like stuff like that. Not until you reach that Undertaker, John Cena, Triple H status. Does he, oh, okay, yeah, whatever works for you, champ. You know, like, you're making me all this money. So, yeah, sure, you got some flex. Yeah, sure, go ahead. You know, so, yeah, he tried. And then, of course, when he was given the stupid T-bar gimmick, what was it? The Reckoning. Everybody was wearing hockey masks and all that. He was not a fan of that. But, you know, what are you going to do? What are you going to do? And see, the way WWE is operating these days with releases, it comes off as if WWE, rather than do bus flips, it seems like now they're just going, when they don't need you, we're just going to let your contract just expire. And quietly you can just go do your thing. We're not going to even do the 90-day non-compete clause. Just, you know, we're just going to let it expire, chill at home, whatever. Like, this is how we're going to roll. I mean, it's a little bit messed up, but at the same time, like, you're avoiding all that unnecessary red tape with the non-compete and all that.
Right. Okay. Well, that answers that question. So it really is like anywhere. Excuse me. It really is like anywhere. You know, when you don't feel valued and you're not feeling heard, and they're really not trying to work with you, a lot of people get bitter. And then it's like, oh, okay, well, you know, kind of good here. I think I can go, you know, make a name for myself, or, you know, grass is always greener on the other side for most people. So, or at least that's the thought process. Let me say that. I have no problem with the hustle. Not at all. You're going to get it where you can get it. Hey, you know what? Kudos to you. It doesn't sound anything more like, honestly, a person who doesn't feel like his potential was met or even close. They didn't do anything with him, or at least to his, you know, thinking to where he could get over, or maybe there wasn't even any conversations of, hey, where do we go from here? Or even if there were, you know, did he have the pull to essentially go to this person or that person and say, hey, you know, maybe not a Vince McMahon, but maybe another, you know, side boss, as you call it. in reference to my opinion with it, I think he's validated.
Well, wait a minute. Wait a minute for clarification. Because I know for a fact you don't know who I'm talking about, which is fine. But I wanted
You're right about that.
Right. I wanted you to mainly speak on him commanding $250 for interviews if you were for it or
I kind of
against
answered where I said you take it where you can get it.
So I just want to make sure that it's clarified for listeners, though. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I don't have an issue to people charging for, you're essentially paying for the person's character or their name, what they've developed. That's what you're paying for. You're paying for the story. You're paying for them to open their mouth. Some people might do it for free, but once you've reached a level to where you feel like you can command it, most people do.
I'm going to push back a little bit on this. And I've been podcasting since 2011. And let me tell you guys something. When it comes to interviews, I hear what the wifey is saying, and I respect her opinion first and foremost. Speaking as somebody that's been podcasting since 2011, I've been fortunate enough to interview many people. There has been no greater feeling in the world than when a publicist representing, be it a video game, a movie, a TV series, there's no better feeling in the world than when I or Tams opens up an email and we're being asked if that individual can come on the show. There's no better feeling in the world because that lets me know that I'm doing something right, especially in regards to the current body of work that's out there that they're seeing and or hearing. That lets me know that they've checked out the work and they feel comfortable enough to put their client in our hands for an interview. There's no better feeling like that in the world. There's also no better feeling in the world than the old barter system, which is, okay, you come on my show and we put you over. We put over your career highlights. We get your thoughts on some of your favorite matches. Now that, you're in a position where you can reflect a little bit. The world has paused for a brief moment, or it's slowed down for you a brief moment for you to reflect. There's no better feeling in the world than when you have that barter system that's in effect. You come on my show, you promote your products, your services, yourself, and in exchange, we're given the opportunity to interview that person. Whether or not there are certain questions that we cannot ask, obviously that's all worked out beforehand and all that, but we're given an opportunity to put this name, out in front of listeners in hopes that, right, it is a mutual transaction, right? That does not involve any money whatsoever. It's a mutual transaction. And I love that system. I've always been a firm believer that if you have to pay for an interview, you better be in a position where if you're going to pay that, you're the first person getting the interview. You are the very first person that's getting the interview, and there essentially is going to be some type of a delay, maybe by a whole week, because maybe that said celebrity, athlete, you name it, that person, the interviewer, right? Actually, correction, the interviewee isn't going to be available to do media rounds for maybe a whole week. So essentially, if you want to get access to that person, like right there off the break, okay, this is the fee. Oh, okay, so I can get ahead before all the other people. Okay, then that is an exclusive, right? That's an exclusive. Okay, I'm down with that. or if it's a situation where it's a legend, you know, it is a pop culture icon. Wait a minute, you got an opportunity to interview Britney Spears. You got an opportunity to interview Hulk Hogan. I don't care how controversial of a figure Hulk Hogan, Britney Spears, whoever you want to put in front of me. If you tell me that they're available for an interview, I don't care if it's $50, $100, $300. If you're telling me they're available, I'm going, okay, you know what? You'd be a fool, especially if you have the money, and money is just, it's an endless resource for you. You can tap into it whenever, wherever, right? It's unlimited for you, right? You got a great budget. Then I would say, okay, yeah, you know, go for it and all that. But as long as I've been podcasting, I've always been a firm believer in, nah, man, you know, you should be doing the interviews. You should be doing the interviews for free. Because I always try to look at it from the standpoint of, okay, what is consciously, fiscally responsible? What is manageable, right? And think about that independent mom and pop podcaster that's out there that unfortunately with the clips that they put up on YouTube for an entire month, all they have to show for is 2 views. Oh, well, they've got an audio version of the podcast. Maybe that does better. They've only got 10 plays. You know, I always think about those type of cats and those cats that's like, man, we got access to interview. Let's go with Hulk Hogan. Well, we can interview Hulk Hogan. How much does he want? Oh, he only wants $400, and that's going to be for a half hour. And they put that money out there and they're going, yeah, this is going to get our show over. Well, first and foremost, you got to understand that, you know, as you like to say, hey, the people that's tuning in, remember now, they're not tuning in for you. They're tuning in for your guests. It's all about your guests.
In that perspective.
Right. Because heaven forbid you get your podcast in a position where it's all about your guests and it's not about you, the host. Now, look, some people like to operate that way. Some people like to weekly. They like to have different people come by their show. That's their shtick. And if that's how they want to roll, okay, great. Have at it. Mm-hmm. Right. But if you're trying to build something, a intimate rapport, a nice back and forth rapport with your listeners, right? You want them to gravitate towards you. You know, you kind of got to be a little bit savvy with it and all that. So just imagine, right? So that's the first phase. Okay, you're going to pay for the money. You're going, okay, we're going to get Hulk Hogan, right? But you shouldn't just be relying on that name to carry your brand. That's my whole point. You shouldn't just marketing ties into all of that, right? Hulk Hogan, Britney Spears, that don't mean shit if you aren't able to put the financial backing in addition to obtaining that guest. You also got to kick it towards your marketing as well. If that means you need to hire a social campaign manager, if that means you need to hire an SEO specialist, if that means you need to kick in a little bit of money on the back end of YouTube for advertising, Google AdWords, whatever you got to do, you've got to freaking do it. I don't care if it's a budget of only $20, $50 or $75. You got to freaking do it. And the other thing that you have to do as well, you've got to reach out to, depending on your genre, as far as who you're interviewing, in this case, wrestling, you got to reach out to those wrestling websites. You got to let them know that, hey, this is what I did. I just did this interview with, you can't just rely on, okay, we interviewed this person. Here's the link. No. Those days are over. You know, that wasn't really popular to begin with, but, you know, at the time when everybody was trying to figure out podcasting on YouTube and all of that, it was very easy to just put up a link and people would just, wow, look at the numbers fly. Those days are over and they ain't coming back. All right. So you got to be strategically smart in your marketing. It's no different than what had happened some years back when Conrad Thompson and them was doing the, Starcast. And you had all those independent podcasters that was averaging those same plays and downloads. It might be $800, $1,000 for a table at Starcast, but man, we get to say that we've been there. We're going to be able to show this footage, and then we'll also be able to interview, this wrestler and this wrestler. No different than the same kind of access that everybody else would have. Okay. And I remember vividly when that went down. All those little podcasts that were going, we were at Starcast and we did this and we did that. A year later, hell, it wasn't even a year later. It was like 6 months later. Them podcasts were defunct.
Mm-hmm.
A year later, them podcasts, nowhere to be found. Right? So you got to be smart about, if you're going to spend on an interview, you got to be smart about it. But I've always been a firm believer, you shouldn't have to pay for an interview. Only one time in my show career history have I paid for an interview. And it was for WWE Hall of Famer Larry Zbyszko. I did not mind Larry Zbyszko. I appreciated all his contributions to the business. And not to mention, this was unfortunately a situation where he was barely, I think we spoke with him, I'm not sure, but I think we spoke with him right before it was announced he was being inducted into the WWE Hall of Fame. I've got to go back and check out the show archives, but I believe it was like way before then. But either way, I remember we reached out to him. And he said, yeah, I would love to do the show. No problem. But, this thing, I got this problem with one of my molders. And I've unfortunately got to spend a pretty coin to get it fixed and everything. Could you maybe kick in a little something? It would help a lot. And I'm thinking to myself, okay, so he's asking for a fee. Okay, I can read between the lines. I'm smart. And I said, well, tell me, sir, what are you looking for? And he said, could you do $80, maybe $90? You would have me for, 2 hours if you like. And I said, I can do the $90, no problem. How about an hour? And he was like, yeah, that's fine. And boom, we worked it out. We made it happen. And I remember everything that I just told you guys about, the reaching out to the websites, making a transcript of certain key things from the interview, making that be available for the sites to run with on top of the link. I made sure that I got my money's worth for that interview. I didn't just rest on, hey, I interviewed Larry Zbyszko. There's the link. Happy trails. No, I made sure that I invested the time and energy to get that interview over. Because you don't think these people are going to be going online looking to see what they had did on that show? John Bertharno, I respect the hell out of him. He's got that great Patreon show. They put up YouTube clips as well, real ones. And I remember, I think he was talking to Powers Omari Hardwick. He mentioned how he had appeared on a podcast and he was able to see their views because I think it was like a webcast stream. And he just totally disregarded them because he said some shit like, yeah, I was on this podcast, some little shitty show. It was only, 200 views. And I was like, damn, it's like you get a name like John Bertharno on your show. And all you got to show for is 200 views. Like you can't even at least crack a modest 1,000.
Mm-hmm. True. Well, it goes into not only, what Lee said about, marketing and getting the product out there, but you as the host or you as the podcast show, you also need to bring your A game too. because the average listener is, yes, they're tuning in for whoever the guest is, for sure. But if you, as the host or the moderator of that podcast, that show, that whatever it is, sucks, you're not going to have a whole lot of high watch time. 1, 2, they're probably only tuning in for your guest and not really you.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Exactly. Yeah, exactly. Because once you've crossed that threshold of it's all about your guests and it's, you're basically in the background, that's like the worst position to be in, because heaven forbid you do a solo show or it's just you and your co-host. There's no guests. And the listeners that's coming in, oh, you ain't got nobody available this week? Y'all ain't talking to nobody this week? Well, I'll check you guys out on the downloads, or I'll check this out when I'm at work, or I'll check this out tomorrow. Like, that's the last thing that you want to see, because, and look, I've been there. I've done that. Trust me. I've been in that position before where I'm live and I'll have somebody drop in the chat room and there's no, dude, like, okay, I hear you. That kind of stings, but I hear you. But like, you don't have to announce that to the whole world. Like, just quietly go do you. No worse feeling in the world than when I'm doing a live show. Somebody comes in. Oh yeah, hey, yeah, I can't check out the show live. I'll check it out tomorrow. I'll listen to it on demand or on the downloads. And it's like, well, it's like, one, well, I appreciate you, but two, like, you really ain't had to broadcast that. You could have just done you. I appreciate the thought, because it is the thought that counts. But it's like, that type of mindset right there, that doesn't help me or my product, because when we're coming on live, we're trying to reach out to those that happen to be around that can dedicate the X amount of the average time to check out the show, at least check out half the show before dipping out and all that. So you can't be mad at me if I go, hey, we're not going to be live on when you're part of the problem as far as, oh, wonder why he don't do more live shows. Well, that right there. Mm-hmm. It's like, you got to remember, like, cause and effect. There's ramifications for it, right? Most people don't think that way.
True.
They don't think that way.
Well, everything is on the go now.
Yeah.
Everything is on the go, and I'll do it when I can.
And that's despite the fact everything's on the go, and that's despite the fact that when you're on the go, you can still access whatever you normally like to access while you're on the go.
Yeah, depending on what it is.
Yeah.
Actually, the funny thing is, I'm sitting here thinking when Lee had said that, as far as only paying for one guest and he's leaving one person out. Scott Hall.
No, Scott Hall.
It's still a donation, but it was still.
Even if I was told that. Okay, so for those that don't remember, Scott Hall had got helped out by DDP and DDP Yoga. And I remember they had I don't know if it was an Indiegogo or if it was a Kickstarter thing, but they were trying to raise X amount of money so that Scott Hall could get the surgeries that he need. And it was also going to cover his stay at DDP's house and all that. And I just remember when it first went down, I said, yes, fuck yes, let's fucking do this. Let's help this guy out. Childhood fucking hero as far as I'm concerned. Yeah, let's do it. And I remember there was a perk involved. It was a Skype interview, and I think there was maybe a 8x10. I'm not really sure, but I know for a fact that there was a Skype call. I didn't care about the Skype call. I just wanted to help Scott Hall out because this guy was part of my childhood. This guy gave me, and after we got done watching Who Killed WCW and all that, it's like this guy was responsible for some key moments in my wrestling fandom growing up. I just wanted to do whatever was possible to help him out. And I made sure that when it came to that Skype call, I made sure I let him know that I appreciated him and that I was glad that he was doing a lot better. It's a conversation that, it's funny because I remember when I had tried to record the Skype call, I wasn't able to because they had like a blocker on or whatever. And I was glad that it ended up going down like that, because there's just some things that should remain intimate and should only be shared between two people. So, but no, what I paid for was him getting the help that he needed.
I just remembered the Skype call. Yeah. And I had forgotten that you couldn't record it.
Yeah. It turns out for that tier I had selected, that was a perk. But Scott Hall and his people, they could have been like, we can't do the Skype interviews. I would have been fine. I paid what I paid because I wanted him to get the help that he needed. And bless his soul, he did all right there until COVID. Mm-hmm. He did all right there until COVID. But yeah, I would imagine that it is a debatable topic amongst podcasters. Hopefully, though, the majority of podcasters, they're, especially veteran podcasters, hopefully they're thinking the way that I'm thinking, which is you should never, one, it depends on the talent, but then two, like you really should not be paying for interviews. And if you were to ask me straight up, has Dijak done enough to command $250 a pop? I would say, look, he's done some damn good matches, but it's not like he didn't hit that. Like, I would have more respect and I could understand it more if it was Karrion Kross that says, hey, $250 for an interview. Or if it was maybe, if you throw another name at me, almost kind of like a low chain name, like if you would throw another lowball name at me, I would go, yeah, hands down for sure. Kofi Kingston, hands down. Hey, for as long as he's been with the WWE, as long as he's been involved in the wrestling industry and he wants to command 250, well, he's got a great body of work, right? There is enough that's there. And Dijak, he's been on the independents for a while, and you could almost say that it was wasted time in WWE for the past 5 years, except for maybe a handful of memorable matches. And unless you're a hardcore Dijak fan, you're not going to remember those matches. Right. So before, I think that's my biggest message to people. It's like, before you're so quick to jump out there in a haste and want to drop that money down, like really take a step back and ask yourself, first and foremost, is this really going to be a return investment?
Mm-hmm. As far as know the value of it.
Right. So.
Well, there's so many layers to it. I mean, in reference to having someone come on your show in reference to the value in it, like you just said, but it then can be made to, made the argument of, okay, with their body of work, is it something that I want to? It's not about whether you should pay it or whether you shouldn't pay it. Sometimes the argument can be made of, okay, yes, this person I could do that for because I see the value in it. Mm-hmm. But this person, well, I don't necessarily see as much value in what they're commanding.
Right.
The other part of that is sometimes not charging as far as, for an interview or whatever have you. Sometimes it really is depending on the show that you're going on. How much reach do they have? What kind of numbers are they pulling in? You know, those type of questions. Then, okay, well, I'm getting just as much marketing pop by going on that show because of what they've got, that I don't necessarily need to charge as much.
To your point, which is why now I kind of more heavily lean more towards, hey, you shouldn't be doing, paid interviews. Like do as many free interviews that essentially, will come your way or whatever. Go for that. Let's remember, rewind this back when it was 2011 and I first began doing this show. You didn't have, Tom, Dick, Harry, Sue, Sally of wrestlers doing the Twitch streams, doing the wrestling podcasts, and all of that. You didn't have that at the time. They were still trying to figure that technology out. A lot of them felt like that was way over their heads. They didn't realize how easy it was to essentially do it way back then. Now, a guy like Colt Cabana had the foresight. He understood exactly what was going on, and he was one of the first to jump on it and take it from there. And I'm talking about as far as a wrestling podcaster. He was, essentially the first and everything. But then I would say the big boom really started to go down 2014, maybe 2015 is when the boom started happening. And now that you fast forward to 2024 and beyond, there are so many wrestlers that's out there. And I don't blame them one little bit. Like, they're now in the position where, okay, look, I've got my respected social media following. I've got my own YouTube channel. I've got my own respected branding. I can easily just do this myself. I can control my own narrative, and I can take the middleman out of the podcaster that's trying to interview me, because I can pretty much just do this myself and not have to worry about my words being misconstrued. So yeah, I'm going to go ahead and do this my damn self. That's what a lot of them are essentially doing. And if they're not doing that, and God bless them, I'm not knocking it, but if they're not doing that, they're going on their friend who happens to be a wrestling podcaster. They're going on to that show and essentially paying it forward by helping them out. It's still that barter system that I was mentioning earlier, but now it's the good old boys and girls system and I'm not knocking it. I respect it, right? But what I'm trying to paint for you guys is the game has changed a lot, to the point, it's rare that you'll see an established wrestler go on a mom and pop podcast. True. It's very rare these days. True. Very rare. So true. And they're essentially like Lee said, they're cutting out the middleman. They can monetize their own stuff. They can bring on their friends, which is other wrestlers, which is hyping up that. And pretty much it's cutting out the middleman, which for them is great. Now maybe for the intermediates and the small podcasts, that does hurt them quite a bit, because what used to be what could get them over is no longer available. Exactly, which is why I'm feeling the way I'm feeling, given the way it is currently, about, hey, you shouldn't be so quick to put that money out there for that interview. If you are a aspiring journalist and you're trying to build up your portfolio, like maybe you're trying to break into Hollywood, you want to be a future anchor or correspondent for Access Hollywood or Extra or Entertainment Tonight or one of those outlets, right? Star Magazine, The Globe, The Inquirer, or whatever, more reputable, Vanity Fair, right? You're trying to eventually work your way up to, and you're in a position where, man, I'm trying to build up my portfolio. What can I do? If you're looking at it strictly from a bragging / portfolio, because eventually, you're going to tap into that to essentially build yourself up. I look at that and I say, hey, more power to you, but have some thought process into it, have a plan, be able to execute properly. Don't just blindly go, I'm going to pay this. And yeah, man, I'm hoping that it'll be Skittles or rainbows because of this. Like, it doesn't work that way. You will lose every time with that mindset.
And you'll have the 5 minutes of fame, but that fades quickly.
It fades very quickly. Exactly. Speaking of popularity, how about that presidential debate last night?
Well, see, I actually came in on it, I guess, about halfway through. I wasn't quite home when it started.
You essentially missed almost the first hour, yeah.
Yeah, that's about halfway through. So, from what I saw, lackluster is probably the word I could use to describe it. There are some very concerning times in our world right now. On many topics. Many topics, actually. So, wanting to have faith, wanting to have, I'm going to stand behind this person, wanting to have that. And I left feeling like I'm not standing behind either of them. I like, my own personal thing is I liked Joe Biden. I voted for Joe Biden in the last election. But I think Father Time is catching up with him. I really do. And there are other variables there that, I'm not going to go completely into it because people have their own variable in reference to their political beliefs. But I did not find confidence that I was looking for. I didn't find a clear picture, which is what I was looking for, or even a half of a clear picture, because it is still a little bit early. And I just felt like dope on the whole thing.
Pose you guys on the Twitter asking, who did you all feel won that debate? As it stands right now, with 6 hours to go until the polling closes, coming in at 20%. Again, who in your eyes won the presidential debate? 20% of you all said neither.
Yeah.
18% of you said Biden. And 62% of you said Trump won. Now, look, what I saw, I watched it all. I even watched the post-analysis shows on mainly MSNBC. That's usually my go-to, but I do like to branch out and see what the other networks are saying as well. I also like to get a sense of, outside of the USA, what other countries are saying about what's happening with our American politics and everything. And I am always unbiased, always right down the middle. I give it to you guys right between the eyes, right? Otherwise it would go against the show motto, which is keeping it honest, keeping it insightful, keeping it interactive. I'm going to look at it from both sides here. Tam's mainly looked at it from the Biden side, and I get that, considering she said, hey, I voted for Biden. Okay, cool. I'm looking at it from both sides. As far as Biden goes, that was an embarrassing performance. He came off senile. He came off very unprepared, which is contradicting because we kept hearing in the news all week. I know each time I was watching the news for the past 2 weeks, I kept hearing about how Biden's camp is prepping him. They're getting him ready for the debate. And, you're like, okay, right. Well, this is what's up. And yet and lay in the most honest, easy analogy that I can put out there of what I saw last night with Biden, it was, wait a minute, you've had 2 weeks or more to prepare for this exam, and you failed. Mm-hmm. Like, you came unprepared. Mm-hmm. That's how I honestly felt when I was looking at him. And I know that there are many clips out there now where people are looking at Biden and they're going, wait, is this edited? No, that's not edited. That's how he really was. I remember there was one part where I can't remember the question, and the president is struggling. I mean, he is struggling to get his answer out, and he's going, you're concerned because you're going, is he getting ready to have an aneurysm or something? What's going on? It was so bad that even Trump kind of looked over at him like, you all right? You know, it was kind of one of those type of deals. You know, but even Trump showed a little bit of vulnerability there, kind of like, you know, what's going on here? His counter punches were very, very weak. Very weak. I did not hear actual plans being laid out as far as what's on his agenda for the second half of a term, if he was to be awarded a second term. I hear this crap about inflation, for example. Oh yeah, many Americans suffering from inflation. That's why for the blacks, I've got this program, and it's like, wait a minute, why are we just targeting blacks? Because, you know, in regards to the American dream of buying a home, that's not just with blacks. That is also with Hispanics. That is also with Asians. That's with Africans. That's definitely with Native Americans. That's just minorities in general. That are working 2, 3, 4 freaking jobs trying to make ends meet in hopes of having that American dream. Like, why are we just singling out blacks? Like, of course, has, you know, if you were to ask me as a black person, has more been done for the blacks? I would say no. Looking at just the inflation alone, I'm looking at the inflation alone, and they put out that ridiculous number. I'm going, no, it's much higher than that. I'm like, you know, like there used to be a time where $150 would get you at least about 3.5 weeks. That would buy you at least 3.5 weeks. And that's if you bought all the essentials. You know, you're like, oh, I need yogurt for 7 days a week. Oh, I need, I need a gallon of milk. I need a couple of boxes of cereal. I need bread. I need lunch meat. I need eggs. Oh, I got to think about dinner. Let me buy a couple of boxes of Velveeta. Let me get some hamburger helper. Oh, need ground beef. Oh, got to get some boneless chicken. Maybe get some pork chops as well. Oh, mashed potatoes. Oh, I need vegetables. Got to make sure I get the vegetables. What else do I need? Oh, the girls need food. Let me get that. Like, there used to be a time where you could put out $150 and you're good for at least 3.5 weeks. That same amount of groceries that I just described, now that bitch costs you at least $250, maybe $260. And that's if you're fucking going to, you know, whatever
your
the cheapest
grocery store
right
in the area.
Right. You're dodging the Wegmans, you're dodging the Harris Teeters, right? You're going with the, you know, give me the everyday price. Right? Give me the best deal. Give me the best everyday price. Right? So this inflation is through the roof, and I didn't hear a concrete plan on, okay, how are we going to curb stomp this? Like what's going on here? So he came off very, you know, and I'm not even thinking about age. I'm a huge Al Pacino fan. And I've seen this guy go through the early 2000s, you know, mid 2000s. I saw him continue to put out some really good work. I've seen him in the later years, like within the past 10 years, I've seen him put out still some pretty good work. Now, there has been more duds, for sure. There's been more duds because now it's just, hey, I need the money. And so he's just pretty much whoring himself out there. And that's kind of, hurt him a bit. But, he can still go out there and swing with the best of them. Okay. I mean, for God's sake, we just watched him in The Irishman. Like, the man can still go. Right. Irishman was, I think at this point, Irishman was, that was a Netflix joint with De Niro.
2020 or 2021?
It felt, no, that felt like 2022 or 23. Hey, Siri. When did The Irishman come out?
Men is a 2022 folk horror film.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
22.
Yeah, 2020. Yeah. Yeah, we're good. We're good. Thank you. 2022. So, I'm not even concerned about their age because it's like, I remember when I was working in market research, there was a manager who I respected a great deal. I highly, highly loved him. He was really cool. His name was Roger. And Roger, despite the fact that he was in his 80s, maybe he might have been moving a little bit slow. Maybe his hands might have been shaking a little bit. But I tell you what, Roger shined when it came to numbers. He could frickin' look at a list of numbers and within seconds, boom, boom, boom. Whether you want to talk multiplication, adding, or you want to talk division, Roger was freakishly good with numbers. And it turns out, before he made the transition into marketing, he was an accountant. He represented quite a few firms. And so that explains how, okay, all right, great. And so he was awesome because whenever it came to quotas we needed for certain projects, I mean, he'd be able to just boom, 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 boom. Dude was awesome. I mean, for a guy in his 80s, his brain was lightning. And then he was also very quick-witted. He could tell you a joke that would have you in tears right there on the spot. He was just so, for me, you can tell me all you want. These two old candidates that's going at it, they're old as fuck. You can hit me up with all that all you want. I'm just going, age ain't nothing but a number. Like, it's all about mentally and physically, like how sharp, how responsive you are. Trump, on the other hand, I didn't care for the bullshit that he was spewing out there, right? He pretty much came with the same rhetoric that I was expecting. And the fucked up part is the Biden camp knew his greatest hits, and yet they had Biden out there looking like a chump. Mm-hmm. Not fucking cool. Whoever the campaign manager was, the preparer there for Biden, fire his ass, bring in a new team. That embarrassment never needs to happen again. But you're looking at Trump, right? And he's using these opportunities to attack Biden. Biden's playing into it when Biden, if anything, should be saying, yo, here's the facts. Here's what's up. Here's what I plan on doing for you, the American people, for the next, right? And Trump is just continuing to just, whether you want to say it's lie upon lie, or you want to call bullshit on what Trump is putting out there, that's for you all to debate upon. But he definitely put out a lot of questionable comments and all that out there. But one positive that I will say about Trump, the sharpness, the wit, it all was there. It all was there. And now we've got, MSNBC and whatever else is out there that's essentially pro-Biden They're all out there acting like it's the end of the world. Oh, I talked to my surrogates. Oh, I talked to some delegates. Oh, I talked to my sources. Oh, it's the end of the world. Oh, well, Biden. And it's like, well, wait a minute now. Y'all be the same motherfuckers that was pushing for this dude to run another 4 years, knowing damn well this guy probably is not really capable of doing those 4 years. We don't exactly have a guarantee that he's going to make it through that second term.
Right.
Okay. Y'all, you're right. It wasn't an issue before. Y'all ain't talk about, hey, look, maybe we should have somebody else on the ticket that should run for the nomination. And Mr. President, sir, if you're able to, if you're able to beat them, then yeah, great, you're our guy. But if you're not able to beat them, then you definitely need to give them your support and all that. Like, no, we don't even go through any of that shit. It's just, please, you have to run again. And one fucking night, you got the president putting out one of the worst performances, and all of a sudden it's the end of the fucking world. And I'm just going, but you guys created this. This is what you wanted. Now you're reneging. Now you don't want this. This late in the game,
you're backtracking because it was such a horrible outcome.
Right. His best weapon right now, if you're looking at it from the Biden side and you're like, where does Biden go from here? Like, he needs to admit his faults. Like, let's not. Yeah, I saw what was being rolled out there today. You got Joe Biden. Oh, Joe gave the greatest debate. He did fantastic. And it's like, what are we giving him, a C for effort? Like, no, we need to give it to him right between the fucking eyes. He sucked. Mm-hmm. How he rebounds is what's most important. Yes. The way that he needs to rebound. Be honest. Hey, am I not the most charismatic person? No. Am I not the most energetic person? No. That is why when it comes to my cabinet, I have surrounded myself with so much great youth from our vice president, Kamala Harris, who, if we're given a second term, she's going to continue to kill it out there and cement her legacy while setting herself up to one day run for president again. And I know she'll win it then. And like, you need to be putting it out there. And speaking of Kamala Harris, like, everybody's going, Kamala Harris. And it's like, no, she's not the answer. As far as the idea of her running in opposition of Biden, like, here's your other option. Like, no, that's suicide. No, you don't want that. If anything, you want her to continue to do what she's been doing, which hasn't been covered that much in the media, which is going to the universities, going to XYZ, talking to people, talking to the younger folks and all that. Honestly, I was joking about it last night with Tams, but I'm being straight up honest. If anybody saw Denzel Washington and Malcolm X, remember how Malcolm X would go out there, give these fiery, passionate, energetic, charismatic speeches. And then when it came time for the Honorable Elijah Muhammad to come and talk, like, damn, Malcolm X did all this great. And that's not exaggerated. That movie is not exaggerated. You can literally go on YouTube and you can look at real Malcolm X speeches as he is just teeing it up for the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. Big ass fucking ball of energy and everything. You feel like so empowered and all of that. And then when Elijah Muhammad comes up to the podium, it's a fucking snooze fest. That's Biden. What we need is for Kamala Harris to be that Malcolm X and pretty much help take Biden to the finish line. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? And do it that way. But it's very troubling. I didn't mean to get off on a rant, but it's very troubling what I'm seeing, honestly, from both sides. Like, as it stands right now, if you were to tell me, yo, you got to go vote, like, today, you got to vote for one of those guys. I'm going, based on what I saw today, neither are getting my vote. I'll just pencil my fucking name in. Right?
Yeah, neither. If it was today, it would be neither. he didn't actually, I said earlier unprepared. Maybe that's a little bit of it, but more he came off like cognitively, it was too much to sort through. Like all of what was in his head, he wanted to get out, but it just wasn't coming out collectively. It wasn't coming out in one piece. It wasn't coming out like, here's what it is. And then sometimes it was, sometimes he did get a couple of dings for himself, like when he said that, once you lost last year, something in you broke.
Yeah, that was a good one. Yeah, that was a good
something,
one.
But he got a couple of things, but for the majority, it was so much searching and what he was trying to say, it made him look incompetent.
And I'll say this much. I don't know what his current schedule is because that's something that the news media has not covered. Like, I don't know what his daily regimen is. I don't know if he's taking vitamins, for focus, clarity. I don't know what's going on with the meal preparations. I always see him eating ice cream, but like as far as his actual meals, what's going on protein wise, what's going on as far as brain food goes and all that. I don't know what his sleeping schedule is and everything, but I hope that everything is on point because, the key to winning these debates is being on top of all of those little things because all of those little things combined help you go a long, long way.
Right.
And what I saw last night, there was a lot of searching, and it's like, wait a minute, if he's been preparing for this, and we've been told that he's been preparing for this for a couple of weeks now, and that's what was executed. Like that,
concerning.
It's concerning because that compared to the State of the Union address, it's two different individuals.
Yeah.
So that's very, very concerning. So, if you're a Biden fan, hopefully he rebounds. And the way he rebounds, everything that we just covered on here. If you are Team Trump, you're looking, honestly, if you're Team Trump, you're going, okay, look, seriously, rather than attack Biden, what is your game plan? What is your game plan for 4 more years if you were to be awarded a second term? What would you do? And like the Trump camp, they could have easily prepared him. They just on inflation alone, put the facts out there. If you want to win this and you want to get more people to come over, hit President Biden with the facts. Hey, inflation, this is what's going on. Don't just rely on, hey, I gave it to Biden on a silver platter. It was perfect and he fucked it up. No. Don't just, no. Hey, when I was in the White House, this is where we were at as far as inflation. Go back. You can fact check this. Biden, this is where we're at right now. This is what I'm seeking to do. If I were to be awarded a second term, I would be looking to eliminate the inflation by There was one critical part where they were talking about, undocumented workers and all of that. They could have easily, both of them, they could have easily tied that to the deficit and said, and I came up with this idea. I said, look, anybody that is working in the United States illegally, they are going to have to be taxed significantly. They have to be taxed significantly. And that money can essentially go to the deficit, and or that money can go to Social Security to ensure that as far as Social Security coverage for the next 10 years, like ain't nothing to worry about. Furthermore, some of you may say, well, damn, that's kind of fucked up to do with the undocumented immigrants. On the contrary, hey, you don't want to continue to get this penalization or penalized? Okay, well, this should encourage you even more to do what you need to do to become a legal U.S. citizen, and then you won't keep having your wages pinched like this, right? It should be all about, encouraging people that's been in this country for, X amount of time I'm like this. If they are physically at a residence, they've got a utility bill coming to their house and all that shit. Like, okay, we need to now at this point help them make the full transition to become a U.S. citizen. If they are renting a room out of somebody's house, there's no bills, whatever, coming in their name, what have you, then that's kind of a situation where, not really sure if we can, but I'm looking for stuff like that. No matter how absurd it might sound, no matter, that's kind of a bad idea. I was looking for one of them to, okay, here's what we're going to do. And all I'm basically hearing is a whole lot of nothing.
Mm-hmm. Agreed.
So as it stands right now, it's like, I don't trust either one of you motherfuckers. And let's not forget, we got the Kennedy dude that's in there. There's a Kennedy that's running. Yeah, I agree. There's a Kennedy dude that's in there. And it's like, well, he's not going to win. So we can pretty much forget that. Like, he's not, somehow he's trying to convince Americans that, not only will he be on the ticket, but if you vote for him, he'll win. It's like, why? Just because your last name is Kennedy? Like, fuck out of here. Like, fuck out of here.
Right. And not only that, there's no ads. There's no promotion.
Right.
Barely.
Right.
So actually, if you want me to be honest with you, until earlier today, I didn't even know there was a Kennedy running.
Wow. Well, hey, that's understandable. That's understandable.
But I mean, I'm not. I know. Essentially a news junkie to where I'm watching it every single day and every single, so on and so forth. So.
Yeah, but just the fact that you watch the news as casually as I do, and the fact that they never mentioned that Kennedy was in this, that tells you all you need to know.
Need to know. Exactly.
You know what I'm saying? That tells you all need to know. So that's where we stand on that. Hopefully you guys appreciate that. Hopefully that was as neutral and unbiased as possible, looking at it from all sides. Oh, can we light up CNN real quick? The fact that CNN just stood by and let both camps, both presidents, spew whatever shit out there and didn't fact check them. Agreed. Fucking bullshit.
I agree with that.
Fucking bullshit.
Because I was looking for that at the hour after the debate.
Yeah.
And say, okay, so as Americans, what is real and what isn't.
Right.
Because they both could be spewing whatever. Mm-hmm. How do we know what's right and what isn't?
It's bullshit, man. Bullshit. Gotta switching it up a little bit. Let's talk entertainment. Switching it up here. I don't know if you heard about this, but a Four Top singer says that the Metro Detroit hospital that he went to racially profiled him during a health emergency. As a member of the Four Tops, he's not an original member, by the way. I did research that. He joined the Four Tops in 2018. Last I saw, there is only one surviving member of the Four Tops that's left. But as a member of the Four Tops currently, Alexander Morris had found himself going to the Ascension Makeup Oakland emergency hospital. He had a health emergency that honestly he wanted to get taken care of ASAP, but this hospital essentially put his life in danger, saying, and I quote, "It's hard to try to heal when you are afraid for your life in a place you should be getting healing from." With chest pains and difficulty breathing, Morris said he was taken by ambulance to this hospital on April 7th. Now, some of you guys are going, April 7th. Well, that's the thing. A lot of us are just now hearing about this shit because it's like, wait a minute. Like, what the fuck? Like, I'm glad that this is now kind of picking up a little bit of steam here. Anyway, the Four Top singer said he told hospital employees he's a member of the Motown group. And he mentioned this. Some of you guys may be like, why is he mentioning this? Is this a vanity thing? Like, what's going on here? Here's the reason why. He also mentioned that he informed them of his security concerns due to threats against his singing group. So he obviously wanted for there to be some type of protection while he was up there. All right, understandable. Morris said hospital staff and security then ordered him to be placed into a straitjacket. They felt that he was crazy.
Wow.
The singer also said they took away his personal possessions. This included his cell phone. And a white male security guard told him to sit his black ass down. Morris said he was in a straitjacket for about an hour until his wife came in and verified his identity. And that's so sad. They don't mention it in this article piece here, but the wife had actually, first the husband had said to the security and all that, they were like, he said to them, hey, look, if you can get me my phone or get me a phone, you know, you can look me up on YouTube and, you know, I'm a member of the Four Tops. And I believe another expletive was used. Whether or not the N-word was used, I'm not going to, because I can't remember. I can't remember, unfortunately, so I'm not going to go there. But then once his wife got word and, you know, she came up there and she pretty much said, hey, you know, yeah, he is a member of the Four Tops. And I think she ended up showing the footage or whatever. Morris said that he was in a straitjacket for about an hour until his wife came and verified his identity. Now, here's where it gets funny. This isn't funny, but this is funny, what you're getting ready to hear. Oh, God. For the ordeal, his attorney, Morris Davis, and Morris, the singer, was offered a $25 gift card. Now Davis said they are preparing to file a lawsuit against against this hospital. We are demanding the termination of any staff who was involved in the racial profiling and discrimination of my client, Mr. Morris, and we are announcing our intention to file a lawsuit against the hospital, stated the attorney. As far as the hospital themselves, this is the statement that they put out. The health, safety, and well-being of our patients, associates, and community members remains our top priority. We remain committed to honoring human dignity and acting with integrity and compassion for all persons and the community. We do not condone racial discrimination of any kind. We are unable to provide any details on cases under investigation. I mean, that just sounds like a Archie Bunker. Hey, look there. I'm sorry for what happened, you know, profiling and all. Hey, look, I got you a $25 gift card to Popeyes because you people eat chicken. You like fried chicken, you know? I mean...
That $25 gift card is an insult. That's terrible. Well, okay. So, nevertheless, that the man is essentially saying, hey, I'm having these issues, so on and so forth. Oh, so by the way, you're not only not having these issues, but apparently you're crazy as well. Now that we've deemed you as crazy, we don't want to hear anything else you have to say. And to that point, it's the assumptions of all of those staff members that got them in trouble. Versus having him in front of your face and listening to him. Everybody knows how to work a smartphone these days. It's not like he was gonna, what was he gonna do? Shine the light on you to death? Basically, he's saying, listen to me. Listen to me. This is what I'm trying to tell you so that you can believe what I'm saying to you. Mm-hmm. He's asking for a little bit more protection. Okay. I mean, that's just so absurd. And to dignify it with I'm sorry, with that $25 gift card, that's an insult. An insult. And if I was in his shoes, I'd probably be wanting to do the same.
I can't help but, and I'm not saying he had it coming to him, but I can't help but wonder how did he phrase it to the staff. And some people hearing that may say, Lee, that shouldn't even matter. But I personally, I think about little nuances like that because, like, I know how I would operate, and obviously not everybody thinks the way I do, granted. But if that would have been me, mm-hmm. I think the way I would have phrased it is, this is going to sound crazy, but it's not, especially if you go online and look it up. But if you are familiar with the Motown band, the Four Tops, or if you're familiar with the, are they Motown or no? Mm-hmm. Okay. If you're familiar with the Motown band, the Four Tops, as you probably know, there's only one sole surviving member that's left. I actually joined the band in 2018. I sing for them. You can actually go on YouTube and you can find me online. If they put out some new studio albums, like I don't know if they put out, I'm looking at the discography right now. Last thing that was put out was actually in 1995. So it looks like there is no new material right now. So yeah, you could, like, if you go online. Oh, hang on. Let's reschedule. Hang on. And give me a second here. I got the computer. It's trying to quietly do updates in the background. Okay, we're good. But I would have said something along those lines because I can kind of understand to a degree if the nurses and security were thinking this way, which is Four Tops, man, that hasn't been like, you know,
they haven't been essentially relevant,
right?
In
decades. Yeah. Like, you're like, wait, all those guys are dead. Like, no, this guy's crazy. And when you, not for nothing, but when you look at this guy, you're going, wow, this guy looks pretty young. Hang on, where's the guy in question? What was that name again? Alexander Morris. When you look him up, he's pretty young. Because when you're thinking Four Tops, you're going, okay, if anybody is alive, they're probably going to be close to 90 years old. And when you look him up, you're going, oh, this guy looks kind of...
It really depends on whether you're a fan of their music or not.
That's also true.
Because if you're a fan of the music, then 9 times out of 10, you're going to know that some of those groups...
There you go. That's how he looks.
Yeah,
he's young.
He's young.
He's old, but he's young.
He's the right age for what he's doing. But most of those bands do that. I mean, they basically are replacing members. You know, the funny thing is, we actually just watched the Temptations movie. Actually, not that long ago.
For the 1,000th time, yeah.
Yeah. So basically, you know, and Otis, who actually is the only surviving member of the Temptations left, he basically said there's no one bigger than the group. And the Temptations and the Four Tops are really those two juggernauts for Motown as far as bands. So they will live on long after their heyday. Because people, and as long as people are still remembering the music or still rediscovering or discovering the music, it will continue to live on. They will continue to tour, you know, at some accord. Mm-hmm. And so, grant you have to essentially replace those people that are no longer there.
Mm-hmm.
So, do I get, okay, well, that's just the assumption that, he must be crazy because he's too young to be one of them. Or, it was kind of funny because I was actually... Either
way, they did him wrong because...
Oh, yes.
Either way, they did him wrong because I would have preferred it if somebody would have... Between the nurses and the security guard, I would have preferred it if one of them would have checked on their phone. And then, and then if they could not verify, then say to him, sir, we couldn't verify. And for your safety and well-being, we're just going to put you in a straitjacket for a little bit.
The fact that they put him in a straitjacket, he must have been getting unruly.
It's possible.
Because they weren't listening.
It's possible, yeah.
Because generally, they don't go right to that.
Right.
That you would have to really be talking out of your head, which may be okay. They thought he was. Mm-hmm. But then he started getting indignant about the fact that they weren't listening.
Possibly physically aggressive without touching them.
That's basically what I mean.
What you mean? Okay.
Yeah. So he's getting physical, like, Leah's saying, maybe he's getting physically aggressive or lunging or, talking wildly with his hands or something like that to where they think he is at a risk of hurting himself or them. Mm-hmm. Or. Mm-hmm. So partly that's it in a nutshell, because they don't usually use restraints unless they feel they have to. Mm-hmm.
It's a crazy.
That's just crazy.
It's a crazy situation. I don't know how much of this, because what I'm thinking about off the break is the camera footage, any surveillance footage that might be able to add some type of validity to these claims. I think it's going to be settled out of court.
I think so too.
I think it's going to be settled out of court. I think the people in question will be removed, but I think it's going to be settled out of court. But when you just hear that, I mean, this is just piss poor customer service when it's all said and done. This is piss. If this is true, this is piss poor customer service, because when you're going to a hospital and you're trying to get help, you should not be second guessed. You should not. Now, obviously, to the points that you made just now, there's obviously a lot more that we need to learn about this. Was he being somehow aggressive? What warranted them putting him in a straitjacket? And then it being a situation where he's left in that straitjacket for an hour. I remember at some point, I think he wanted something to drink. I think he was denied something to drink. I could have sworn I remember reading that. So, I mean, there's a whole bunch of stuff in this where you're going, man, this just gets more and more fucked up. And then by the end of it, a fucking gift card. And I tell you what, if they've got some type of email, some type of, not necessarily a phone conversation recorded, because that's not admissible in court, especially when the parties are not aware they're being recorded. Mm-hmm. But if they've got some type of email where, oh, hey, yeah, we're sorry about that. Yeah, we fucked up. Hey, here's a gift card, buddy boy. Yeah. That's definitely a form of admission of guilt. Mm-hmm. And that's definitely enough to, run with and all that. But, to hear that, it's just crazy, because let's say this is true. Nobody had the common sense of all the times when motherfuckers usually are on their phone anyway, and they're browsing the web, they're browsing whatever app, they're looking up a puppy video, whatever the fuck stupid shit they're looking at. The one time it counts, you're telling me that you don't pull out a phone or a tablet and
just to validate the point?
Right. I would prefer it if you did look online, you couldn't find anything, and then you say to them, hey, I can't find anything. For your safety, and well-being, we just want to put you in this straitjacket here or whatever. Like if you think they're off their rocker, you know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. Now, I'm going on YouTube as we speak, and I'm just going to say the Four Tops I'm going to say live.
20 something.
Well, it's interesting because when I say live, I got 4 tops live 2023. I got 2024. I'll just go with 2023. And wow, I am looking at actually the very first video that pops up in 2023 is a Midland, Texas performance, October 28th of 2023. It's got over 10,000 views. This was uploaded 7 months ago. And wouldn't you know it, when you look at the thumbnail, man, you blow that bitch up, you see him clear as day. I'm looking at other thumbnail videos, clear as day. He's in there. So this is very easily verifiable.
Mm-hmm. And that's all they would have had to have done.
That's all they would have had to have done.
And they could have saved themselves the embarrassment.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if this man's health, because God forbid, what if he had had a heart attack because he was so upset? He went in there with chest pains.
Right.
You know, and you know, he's either a vegetable or you know, God forbid, deceased.
Just imagine if his wife did not get there to verify his
that hour would have been days,
possibly,
or hours. You know, that basically you're saying, and I can understand why he said racially profiled. I would have felt the same way. Oh, so because I'm black, you don't want to believe a word I say, nor are you trying to at least help me validate the fact that I'm telling you the truth.
I'm cross-referencing here, presented to the emergency room with difficulty breathing and chest pain. He was on oxygen. And
wow.
He had a known significant history of cardiac disease, including the placement of stents and a defibrillator.
Ooh. That's a problem.
Said that he had security concerns due to stalkers and fans, as he revealed himself to the nurse. He feels it racially profiled him or profiled him based upon a perceived disability, and placed an order for a psychological evaluation because they didn't believe Morris was a singer or member of the Four Tops. An ER doctor decided to remove him from oxygen and pursue a psychiatric evaluation instead, despite his clear symptoms of cardiac distress and significant medical history, the lawsuit alleges. The lawsuit states that a security guard was instructed to ensure he was placed into a restraining jacket and/or a 4-point restraint mechanism. Morris told CNN, he told the hospital staff, "I have never been so demeaned, so dehumanized, and so disrespected in all my life." According to the lawsuit, Morris attempted to prove his identity, offering to show his identification, but was told by the security guard, who is white, to sit his black ass down. Lawsuit states that Morris asked to have the restraint device removed and asked for his personal belongings so he could leave and seek treatment at another hospital, but was told he was not free to leave. Oof. Morris attorney Morris Davis told CNN his client was going through a clear medical emergency where he's having chest pain. He has a history of heart problems, a history of strokes, a situation that calls for swift medical intervention. Yes. According to the lawsuit, Morris was denied medical care until a nurse allowed him to show her a video of a Four Tops performance at the Grammys. Lawsuit states the restraint jacket was finally removed and he was placed back on oxygen. Morris was restrained for approximately an hour and a half. Morris said his identity was proven almost 4 hours after he arrived at the hospital. I said all it took was 2 minutes to verify that I am who I am, Morris told CNN. Instead of you verifying who I am, you tell me I'm crazy and want to send me to the psych evaluation department. Mentions the gift card. My anxiety, everything was through the roof. I would not eat. I was afraid to eat anything brought to me that was not sealed. Morris said he believed he was close to death because of his health history. Yeah, no shit, because I had several heart attacks and things like that. My heart was already compromised. Morris said he had 3 seizures and stayed at the hospital there, the Oakland hospital there, for about 5 days because he was too sick to be removed to another hospital. It's unclear if the alleged actions by the hospital contributed to more subsequent medical issues. If a person is coming in for help, I don't care what their nationality, ethnicity, religious beliefs, or their sexual orientation. If they come to your emergency room for help, help them first. Davis told CNN the hospital should compensate Morris for what his client endured. According to the lawsuit, Morris is seeking a compensation for damages from the defendants to be determined by a jury in the excess of $75,000.
It's not unreasonable.
No, not at all.
I agree with him wholeheartedly. I don't.
So the N-word wasn't used, but God damn it, if that ain't racial profiling, I don't know what is.
Right. And a real misjudge of character. Number one. And the other part of it is honestly, why did they have to take it that far? I mean, that just makes no sense to me.
Right.
You know, it's like, okay, well, none of us look like we do when we're on, out and about running errands and feeling our best. Mm-hmm. When we don't feel like nothing or close to death, according to him, yeah, we gonna look like shit. And so maybe he wasn't looking his best. Okay. But I mean, if somebody is trying to tell you and vehemently trying to tell you that this is who I am, why not at least take the time out? It didn't take one of the nurses time finally to get somebody to believe him. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And then it was like, oh, okay. Okay, well, wait a minute. Let's hold up.
Right.
Why sorry. I thought that people had to actually take an oath in the medical field to essentially, regardless of that, color, creed, all that, you are to help them.
Mm-hmm. And shout out to those of you that work in the medical field, you nurses out there, you doctors. Hearing this, I would love to know from you guys, what is the proper procedure? What has to escalate, if anything, before you guys decide you're going to remove somebody's oxygen and do a psychiatric evaluation, which involves putting that person in restraints? Let us know if you have experienced a similar situation like this before. Bear witness to it. What's the proper protocol? In order to get to this point, this has to happen and this has to happen. You can reach out, shoot us an email, hit up. Matter of fact, let me make sure that email, I still have access to it because I got this new laptop and not to mention the new iPhone, and I'm not logged into everything, unfortunately. I'm looking right now. Oh, so I can, hang on. I'm signed out of that one. Let me sign in. Next, verify it's you. And yeah, what I'm going to say right now, you can either hit me up on Twitter at the RCWR show, or you can shoot a email, infinity1prod at gmail.com. One more time, that's infinity, ENFINITY, put in the actual number 1, PROD as in David, infinity1prod at gmail.com. Hopefully I'll be able to access the RCWR show at Gmail one in a little bit, because that's the one that is supposed to be for the shows and all that. But temporarily, just for this week only, shoot us an email at that one. Let us know about that, because that would definitely help us out. But hopefully that brother gets everything that's coming to him.
I hope so.
And then some, assuming
Because
this is legit.
any person, as per someone who was in the medical field at one point, any person that's on oxygen for whatever reason, you don't remove that. You don't. You're essentially taking that assistive device away and making it harder for that person who's having the medical emergency.
Yeah. No doubt.
So, but anyway, I do. I really hope that he gets everything that's coming to him, because that was just completely uncalled for.
And guys, I am able to access the RCWR show Gmail. I just checked. So scratch off that Infinity One Prod and actually shoot an email at the RCWR show. Make sure you put the TAG in there. The RCWR show at gmail.com. Want to give a shout out to a few folks. Shout out to our friends over at Wrestling Soup. Shout out to Mission Joe. Shout out to my man Julian Cannon of Digiday and the Nocturnal, continuing to put out those great reviews for this current season of Power. I know he's excited and geared up for the next chapter of The Walking Dead, Book of Carol and Dead City. I think we got those coming out later this year. Shout out to all of our sponsors as well. Appreciate you guys, because honestly, without their support, content like what you're checking out right now would not be possible. Shout out to you guys for you, the listeners. Shout out to you guys for representing. Appreciate you guys big time. We will have another edition for you guys. So the way we're doing it right now, we're not setting a concrete day of the week when we drop these episodes. We just know that sometime between a Wednesday through the weekend, we're going to have these episodes of Wrestling with the Topics be released for you guys, FYI. So just know that definitely by the weekend each week, you guys will be getting a new episode for the next little bit. Sound off, give us feedback online via YouTube, the Facebook show page, Twitter. Use the keywords, the RCWR show. Until next go round, my pretty babies. Lee and Tammy Sanders wishing all of y'all to be safe and most importantly, be kind to one another. We'll see you all next go round. Adios, y'all, and take care.
See ya!
Thanks for listening. An Infinity One Productions presentation. Keeping it honest.